My name is Stephen Bowtie Stubbs. I am general counsel for the Mongols Motorcycle Club, and I sat second chair, or am sitting second chair, in the Mongols patch trial, the Save the Patch trial in Santa Ana, California, and there was a verdict yesterday. And I want to explain to the motorcycle community exactly what happened, how it happened, and what it means to your patch. Forgive the appearance. I'm usually in, a tie and presenting a little better when I do a video. However, I'm busy as hell, so you're just gonna have to settle for me doing this while I'm walking my dog, because I got to get back to work. So yesterday, December 13th, 2018, Mongols Nation was found guilty of racketeering and conspiracy to commit racketeering under the RICO Act, the Racketeer Influence Corruption Act. Now, the RICO Act is a very broad law, and it was meant to be so by Congress. It was meant to take down the mob. I don't think it was ever meant to attack a motorcycle club and try to take away their patch and their identity and something that's so important to them. And I think this is all a giant waste of money. But that aside, if they can do three things, if the government can do three things, they can take away the Mongols patch, and then they can use that to take away everybody's patches. Because one thing that was crystal clear in this trial is that it wasn't just the Mongols on trial, but it was biker culture in general. The government hates biker culture. The government hates the very idea that if you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to do anything you want, because laws are meant to control people, and that became very, very evident during trial. But in any case, if the government can do three things, they have to go through all three phases and be successful in all three phases, they get to take the patch. Number one, the substantive RICO, or RICO conspiracy. They had to get a jury to say beyond a reasonable doubt that Mongols Nation committed RICO, or was in a conspiracy to commit RICO. That's number one, and they did that, and I'll explain that in a minute. Number two, they then have to prove a nexus under preponderance of the evidence. They have to show the jury that there was a nexus or a connection between the patch and the RICO, or substantive RICO. And if the government passes that one as well, then it goes on to the third. And the third is the First Amendment challenge. Now, Judge Carter has already issued a First Amendment ruling and dismissed this case on First Amendment grounds because the wearing of patches and the group having these patches is protected by the First Amendment. And Judge Carter, who's a fantastic judge, the best I've ever seen, he said that. However, it got appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit didn't overrule him. What they did is they said that issue isn't ripe until after the forfeiture stage. And so they basically said, you didn't do this at the right time. You have to give the government a shot. You've got to give the opportunity for the government to prove their case. Then if it passes the substantive phase, if it passes the forfeiture phase, then you can decide First Amendment, and then the Ninth Circuit can hear any appeals, or even the Supreme Court. So this is a novel case. This is the very first time the government has ever charged RICO on an organization without naming any individuals in the indictment. So they had already convicted people of doing everything that's included inside this RICO indictment, but they decided to take the extra step to spend millions and millions of dollars to go after the patch. Okay, so let's talk about what happened in the last 6 weeks. It was pretty much a 6-week trial. The jury deliberated for 7 days, and the verdict came back guilty. However, there were charges in the indictment of both acts outside of when Ruben Kavazos was president of the Mongols, and acts during when Ruben Kavazos was president of the Mongols. And we're talking about, if you look it up, it's called Black Rain. It was an investigation by the ATF into the Mongols Motorcycle Club when Ruben Doc Cavazos was president. Now here's what's important. The Mongols Motorcycle Club polices itself. The Mongols Motorcycle Club has a constitution that says you cannot use the patch for your own personal gain. It's something that's extremely important to them. It's sacrosanct because that patch represents brotherhood. That patch represents brothers who have died, brothers who are alive, their connection. There's a military history to it, to where many of the Mongols are members of the military and their brothers. There's a connection that Jesse Ventura, former Governor Jesse Ventura, explained very well in trial of when the Mongols started in December 1969. This was after, or actually during Vietnam, when they weren't being treated very well. So there's this huge connection. So the patch is really sacred to them. It represents their brotherhood and their sacrifices and people that they hold dear. The exact same way that a wedding ring represents the relationship of the marriage, and people wear their wedding rings. The patch represents their relationship with their brotherhood, and so that's very very important to them. So they have the rule in their constitution that says you cannot use your patch for personal gain, and they will kick people out at any time if that happens. They also have their constitution that they don't let people do bad things and be members of the Mongols Motorcycle Club if they're doing those bad things. So here's what's important. Ruben Doc Cavazos was an asshole. Ruben Doc Cavazos became president of the Mongols and was a con man. He lied to them to get to that point, and he did it for his own selfish reasons. And there is no doubt that he committed crimes. There is no doubt that during his stint as president, some other people committed crimes. Those people have been prosecuted. Those people are paying the price for it, and they were kicked out of the club with extremely few exceptions. It was even brought out at trial. They were kicked out of the club. Now, Doc, he was kicked out of the club in August 2008. Important date. August 2008. He was kicked out because the club found out. The club as a whole found out all these things that he was doing, and the club excommunicated him, expelled him from the club. August 2008. Mongols had no idea at that time that there were any undercovers. They had no idea any time that there had been a years-long investigation, and they had no idea at the time that there was a sealed indictment, and that indictment was about to come in on them. In October 2008, two months after they found out and they policed themselves and they kicked Duck out, 2 months after in October 2008, the indictment was unsealed, and the stings for Operation Black Rain, and you can look it up, Operation Black Rain, it is what it is. Operation Black Rain came down, and 79 people were indicted. Most of them pled guilty. Many of them actually pled guilty, even though I believe they weren't guilty, because they were simply pressured to. Some were guilty, and they were kicked out of the club. That's no doubt as well. But this all went down. But the Mongols kicked Doc out first, before they knew anything. That shows their character. That shows where their head's at. And I'm proud to be their attorney. I'm proud to be their general counsel and to sit second chair with them. So why is this important? Of the 9, they're called predicate acts in the RICO trial. And with RICO, you have to find, or the jury has to find beyond a reasonable doubt that the organization either expressly or implicitly ordered or condoned 2 or more RICO acts, not individuals, but that the organization did. And importantly, there was some things inside and outside of Doc's time as president. So, of the 9, the jury found that 5 were proven. 5 of them. And the majority of those were drug cases. Basically enough drugs to fill about a third of a grocery bag. Total. 49 years of investigating the Mongols Motorcycle Club. And in total, in fact, Joe Yanni had a grocery bag and actually put the actual evidence in the grocery bag to the jury. In 49 years, there was that amount of drugs that the ATF was able to prove were sold by members or associates of the Mongols Motorcycle Club. That's kind of de minimis, by the way, but that's not the point. Hey, the point is, they were found guilty on 5 of the 9. Every one of those was during Doc's reign. Every last one of them. Everything outside of Doc's time, they were found not guilty, or there was even one to where it was locked 11-2. And so that one didn't move forward. Okay. So the government, even though there was a Mongols Motorcycle Club well before Doc Cavazos, and it's very important to a lot of people, and even though the patch belongs to its collective membership under United States law, and even though it's important to all these people, and even though the Mongols Motorcycle Club is not only around but thriving after Doc was kicked out, even though because the jury found that that the Mongols nation was guilty on those 5 predicate acts, mostly drugs, 5 predicate acts, the Mongols nation was found guilty. So, I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with taking something or holding an entire group responsible for the acts of the few. Now, what the jury clearly thought, what the jury clearly concluded, was that because Doc Cavazos was the president of the Mongols Motorcycle Club during that time, that there was an order of approval, either directly or indirectly, by the Mongols Motorcycle Club and Mongol Nation. We argued that these were rogue acts. We argued the truth that there's always bad apples that could spoil the bunch, and unlike a lot of organizations, the Mongols actually kicks them out, so they don't spoil the bunch. But we were unsuccessful. And so yesterday, December 13th, 2018, over a decade after Ruben Doc Cavazos was kicked out of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, over a decade, Mongols Nation was found guilty of RICO under 5 predicate acts, and also found guilty of conspiracy to commit RICO. And the government prevailed on the first of 3 stages. So what does that mean moving forward? That means that on January 8th, 2019, we go back to court, and the government has to argue and convince a jury under preponderance of the evidence that there was a nexus. There was a nexus under the law with the patch and those crimes. And we might just win that. And if we do, the government loses, because they have to prevail on all 3 phases to win. And then, if they lose, then they lose, and we win, right? The Mongols gets to keep their patch. Then on the 3rd phase, if they're successful on the 2nd phase, on round 3, we get to argue First Amendment grounds. We get to argue that the Constitution protects the wearing of these patches and these symbols, and the government cannot infringe on that. The government cannot take it away. We've already won that argument once. We plan on winning that argument again if need be. And frankly, we plan on fighting until there is no fight. Mongols Nation stands up to bullies, especially when those bullies are the federal government. Now I want to add something. Yesterday morning, while the jury was deliberating, we were actually celebrating something that was happening nationwide, because for years the Motorcycle Riders Foundation and thousands of people helping them, but spearheaded by the Motorcycle Riders Foundation. Hardtail is the main guy. For years we've been fighting for motorcycle anti-profiling. Because motorcyclists, just because they're on a motorcycle, are targeted. And that's really what this case is about too, right? And it's not fair. The profiling, it's not fair. And there's actually laws in place. There's a 2015 decision with Ginsburg from the United States Supreme Court that makes a lot of what the police do completely illegal, but they don't obey that. And so we had a huge moment because the United States Senate, the day earlier, on the 12th, the United States Senate passed a Senate resolution, unanimously, bipartisan Senate resolution, recognizing that there was a problem with motorcycle profiling, and a resolution for law enforcement to talk to the motorcycle community and try to solve this problem. Now, the House will likely take up this their own resolution on the 20th or 21st of December. I plan on being there for that too. But last May, hundreds of bikers went to Washington to lobby. I was there with Hardtail and Spike and so many other people, and we are all fighting for our rights. And it's been years that the community as a whole has been fighting for these rights and wanting it to be recognized that, hey, profiling is happening and it shouldn't. And some states have even passed state laws. And in fact, Nevada, my state, is going to be considering a state motorcycle anti-profiling law this legislative session this year. But we got a big win because the Senate passed their resolution. The Senate recognized that there was motorcycle profiling and that we needed to solve this problem. It's a huge win for us. Huge. And so I simply asked directly ATF agent Chacon. I simply asked him, I said, did you hear about it? Did you hear about the Senate passing the resolution? U.S. Attorney Steve Welk interrupted us, inserted himself in the conversation, and he mocked it. He mocked the efforts. He was literally laughing and mocked the efforts of the entire motorcycle community, even though the United States Senate unanimously passed the resolution. In effect, he was mocking the United States Senate because he was mocking what they did, but he was mocking us. And I took a deep breath and I turned to him and I said, you know, Mr. Welk, you're allowed to have an adult conversation without being dick, right? You're allowed to have an adult conversation without being a dick. And he, with a completely straight face, not joking at all, he looked right back at me and he said, if you talk to anybody who knows me, you'll find out that no, I can't. And I turned to him and I said, well, then I guess that's something we're just going to agree on. Because the fact of the matter is, U.S. Attorney Steve Welk can't have an adult conversation without being a dick, by his own admission, without joking. And everything that's happening here is simply because Welk and Brunson and they're just being dicks. They're spending millions of dollars to take away a club's patch. Think about that. Millions of dollars for a patch. Got to get back to work. I love all you. We appreciate your prayers. Bye.